Hare Krishna. Welcome. Welcome, my dear ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another live stream. Another live stream here from Mayapur. One second. I need to switch it all off. Okay. Today is Govardhan Puja. And of course, which story would fit better than exactly Govardhan Lila? How it came about that we on this day worship Govardhan so opulently, so joyously in so many festivals, in so many temples around the world. Govardhan Puja is celebrated today, and it is really just a joyous festival with so much food. It is the only festival we are not fasting. Usually, when we Vaishnavas observe a festival, we make it kind of like an offering to the occasion that we fast for a specific time. But Govardhan doesn't want that we fast. And how that came about, how it came about that we worship Govardhan Hill, how it came about that we doesn't need to fast on that day, and what happened after, all this we will just hear now. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for joining into this live stream. So let's start. Govardhan Puja started actually with a very busy day. Like Krishna was observing that his father was very, very busy preparing for some kind of festival. He and also the elderly man, the senior man, they were making extensive preparations for a festival. And Krishna was wondering, what are they doing? What is all that about? Why they're so busy preparing a yajna and bringing all this paraphernalia? So he went to his father and inquired about, my dear father, what is this occasion? What is this preparations for? First, Nanda Maharaj did not really take him seriously, and he was, should I now explain it to him? I'm really busy, and he was not really paying attention to him. But then Krishna was more eager to hear about it, and he said, my father, please explain it to me. I really want to know. I want to know everything about these preparations. What is it for? Who told you to do so? And how exactly will the worship take place? When Nanda Maharaj saw that his son was really like interesting and really hearing about, he was happy about these mature questions of his son, so he was smiling affectionately, took Krishna on his lap, and then described the nature of the sacrifice. And he was describing that this sacrifice, my dear son, is for Indra. And it's a family tradition. Since very long time, we observing this in our family. You have to know, the cows are our only wealth. And the cows live on grass. And the grass can only grow when it's raining. So, and for this, my dear son, for the rain we need Indra, and to please him, to give us an abundance of rain, that the grass is growing and the cows are fed sumptuously on soft, green, tender grass. That's why we observing a festival for Indra, an offering for Indra. When Krishna heard that, he wasn't pleased at all. Actually, Krishna is God, and he knew that Indra became a little bit too puffed up with his position. He's the king of heaven, and he had a lot of power, but in the moment he was a little bit too pride about all this power he had. So Krishna had a plan to reduce this pride a little bit. So he started an argument with Nanda Maharaj. He said, but Nanda Baba, actually, it's not Indra who makes the cows happy. It's Govardhan Hill who makes the cows happy. He increases their health, he increases their satisfaction. One argument he was also giving is that Indra is anyway giving rain. You see, Nanda Baba, my dear father, he's even giving rain to the ocean. He's even giving rain to the mountains. Why does the ocean need rain? And they are doing no sacrifice at all. So it's anyway Indra's duty to give rain. The real pleasure for the cows, that is coming from Govardhan. And so Krishna put one argument after another on the table. And Nanda Maharaj, he was really like touched in the heart, like how his son is trying to convince him that he should worship Govardhan. He could feel it was really his desire that they would worship Govardhan. So he said, okay, after we worship Indra, we can worship Govardhan. It's your desire, we can do it. But no. This was not what Krishna wanted. He wanted no sacrifice for Indra. So again, he put more arguments on the table. And he said, no delay. My dear Baba, take all the arrangements you already made. Take all the paraphernalia you made for Indra. Take all this and engage it in the satisfaction of Govardhan and the local brahmanas. And finally, Nanda Maharaj said, okay. He knew his arguments were not really making sense, and it was a little bit switched around, but still he could really feel the desire of Krishna and the sweetness, and somehow Krishna was able to convince Nanda Maharaj to just give up this sacrifice for Indra and instead worship Govardhan. But the cowherd boys, the cowherd men, they didn't know what to do actually. They never ever did a Govardhan Puja. They never worshipped Govardhan. So they asked Krishna, well, okay, we're doing this Govardhan Puja, but what should we do? Krishna told him exactly what to do. He said, first, prepare very nice food like rice, dal, halwa, sweet rice, pakoras, puris, a lot of milk preparations, sweet balls, rasgullas, and he was telling them all kinds of preparations they could do. Then invite the learned brahmanas. They will chant the Vedic hymns and they will do the offering for the fire. You also decorate the cows and feed them and worship the cows as well. Then you give charity to the brahmanas, and at last, you give prasadam to everyone. That's how we observe Govardhan Puja. Krishna really wanted to show everyone that there is no need to go to someone else. If you love Krishna, if you really choose Krishna, then there is no need to go someone else. You only can depend on Krishna. So this, he really wanted to show the Brajbasis. So he really wanted to make this Govardhan festival like a festival. You will later see. It's a festival for Krishna himself, but he really wanted to kick out Indra out of the picture. No need to go to Indra. No need. We can take shelter of Govardhan Hill. So, okay, Nanda Maharaj agreed. The preparations were done. And on that day, everyone camped on the banks of Manasi Ganga. They observed actually Diwali festivals the day before Govardhan Puja. So they observed Diwali festival, but actually they were only thinking about the upcoming Govardhan festival and how it would be. It was the first time, and now they made so many preparations and everything was new and fresh. So they were really lovingly waiting for the festival. So the next morning they got up, they bathed, they dressed, they ornamented themselves. And not only themselves, because Krishna had also said they should decorate the cows. And that's what they did. They decorated the cows really, really beautifully. When they do something, they don't do it small. They do it like, wow. So the cows, for example, they got pearl necklaces. The horns got gold plated, and they got really colorful silk clothes, like silk blankets over their back. So they really looked exquisite, beautiful. When the calves saw how beautiful their mothers were and how they got dressed up, then they were like really happy, and they were jumping around very, very happily, like jumping up and down, seeing the mothers so beautiful. They were really happy. Like they never, I don't know if never, but very rarely saw the mother cows so beautiful. And while this decoration was going on, the bulls, they mooed in a way in the mist of the morning that it sounded like the bulls would chant mantras. It sounded like they were sages chanting their prayers. So it was already like a wonderful scene they could observe here. So when everybody was ready, when everybody was decorated, they went on their way to Govardhan Hill. Actually, it is said not only the calves, cows and bulls and Brajbasis went there, also demigods were joining in, like Shiva came riding on his bull Nandi, or various Raja Rishis, yogis and Paramahamsas came and joined the procession. Even it is said that personified mountains, like for example Mount Meru, came to join the procession to Govardhan Hill. And when all these people, all these demigods, all the cows arrived at Govardhan, at that morning, Govardhan looked extremely beautiful, even more beautiful than usual. It was his day, and he maybe felt it. So when they arrived at Govardhan, they set up a little place. So they prepared some shading places where they could sit nicely. The brahmanas started to chant the mantras. And yeah, when everything was set up, they started to worship Govardhan Hill. Then the description vary a little bit. Some say the Brajbasis selected a special boulder from Govardhan. They selected one boulder and started to worship that. In other descriptions, it's not really mentioned that they only selected one boulder. It's only said that they started to worship Govardhan Hill, like in general. However, it was, Nanda Maharaj had brought the necessary articles for the puja, so they offered incense, they offered wildflowers, they offered ghee lamps and camphor lamps, and after they offered Giriraj, Giri Govardhan, a sitting place and cool water to wash their feet and rinse his mouth. After the puja was done, the brahmanas chanted the Purusha Shukta prayers, and they started to bathe Govardhan with very pure substances like Yamuna water, milk from the best cows, honey, and they bathed Govardhan in Panchamrita. It's a mixture of milk, yogurt, ghee, sugar, and honey. After, of course, they bathed him with pure water again, and then he dried with a soft towel. The brahmanas then started decorating Govardhan Hill with cloth. You can see this even today, like people are offering a cloth to Govardhan, and they also offered necklaces and a very, very beautiful gold studded crown. At last, all the Brajbasi offered flower garlands, and they made Pushpanjali huge. They bathed Govardhan in a huge mountain of flower petals. Pushpanjali. It was really, really joyous already till this moment. Of course, all this, while all this was happening, musicians were playing. They were playing very auspicious sounds, but also very loud sounds. And it is described that these sounds they can even, or they traveled even up to Indra. And even Indra at that point, he didn't know what's going on. He did not know that his puja was cancelled and they were worshipping now Govardhan Hill. But this sound, this very loud, auspicious sound, traveled already to him, and his body got the reaction that something is going on here. So his body could feel it, and he got an earache, a very heavy earache from this loud music. Even Indra did not know yet, but still the body had some reaction going on. Earache. So after the bathing and the Pushpanjali, now my favorite part starts, the food offering. Now comes the food offering. And this, my dear ladies and gentlemen, that is something. It was something no one, never ever had seen before. There were a lot of pots full of milk, first class milk sweets, fancy cakes, leaf bowls full of ghee, honey, drinks, oceans of yogurt and buttermilk, fresh butter, everything very nicely decorated and prepared, and they put it all in front of Govardhan. And at last, they were putting an Anakut hill. It's a hill of food. So they made a hill, mostly out of grains, like rice, for example. And this hill was covered in ghee. So it looked like a golden peak. So they made a hill, and then the peak went up. The ghee was poured over, so it was shining really nice and golden. And on the base of this hill, they put even more preparations. They put colorful sabjis, lakes of dal, fragrant soup. On the sides, they had like multicolored cakes. At the edges, they had fruits and flower decorations. And this hill, this huge Anakut hill, it appeared like a second Govardhan hill. So huge was it. It was like huge, colorful, beautiful. When Nanda Maharaj looked at that food offering, he was standing there with a huge smile on his face. This opulence was really fitting Govardhan, he was thinking. No king on earth, no demigod in heaven had ever had such an exquisite offering of preparations. It was all kinds of variety of taste, texture, and it was wonderful. At that point, when everything was offered, everyone paid their obeisances. And when they were still on the ground, they heard suddenly a rumbling sound. And when they came up from their obeisances, they saw like a large divine figure standing on top of Govardhan Hill. This huge form had a blackish complexion, golden garments, glittering ornaments, and it didn't have a gold crown like they offered before. It had a huge flower crown. Beautiful, huge, on top of Govardhan Hill. And the people were staring in wonder. Then this personality on top of Govardhan Hill, he was sitting down like as if Govardhan was his throne. His eyes were rolling ecstatically and his arms were swaying, and he looked at all the food preparations in front of him. The Brajbasis, still in awe, they couldn't say anything. They were just thinking. Some were thinking like, it's a mirage. It's not really there. Others were thinking, this must be the hill personified. It's the personality of the mountain appearing before us. And again, others were thinking, this is Krishna. This must be Krishna. He looks like Krishna. He has the atmosphere of Krishna. So they could not quite figure it out who it really was, but they were really in awe. And not only the people, also the animals. The cows, for example, they were always chewing grass, and when this huge figure had appeared, they just standing very still, stopped whatever they did, and the grass was still hanging out of their mouths. Also, like the deer, parrots, and rabbits, they simply stopped whatever they were doing and they were stunned with their fur and feather standing on end. So finally, it was Krishna. It was Krishna who was amidst the Brajbasis who broke the silence. Krishna came forward with folded hands and addressed very respectfully this personality on the mountain, and he inquired from him, "Oh, my dear Lord, who are you?" And this personality answered with a rumbling sound like thunderclouds. He replied, "Oh, little boy, I am Govardhan Hill. I am the presiding deity of this place. And I appeared because I am so much pleased with your devotion." When the Brajbasis heard this, that broke their stunnedness, their stillness, their awe. Finally, they could talk again. And when they heard that the personality was so pleased with their devotion, they were loudly crying or calling out, "Jai, Jai." Still they didn't know who this personality really is. They couldn't figure out it was Krishna himself. We know from the acharyas who were explaining us that it is actually Krishna. Krishna manifested himself as Govardhan, but the Brajbasis at that time, they did not know. Also Radharani, she was also like fooled. Usually she was the one who always can detect Krishna, but at this case she also did not really know that it is also a form of Krishna. So this personality had now said that he was very pleased with their devotion and that he would now start to eat all the preparations they had made for him, because he wanted to reciprocate with their love, and he wanted to thank them in eating what they did for him. So he did. And this, my dear ladies and gentlemen, it must have looked so wonderful. Now this huge, beautiful form of Govardhan Hill, this personality, he extends his right arm and starts to eat all the food preparations. And in some descriptions it is said, in some descriptions it is said that it looked like as if he had 1,000 hands and millions of hands. He was taking all the offerings, and while he was doing so, he filled everyone with great, great joy. And with each mouthful he took, he grew larger and larger and larger. And also the joy of the people around him grew larger and larger and larger and larger. And it was more eating, more happiness being bigger. More eating, more happiness growing larger. And he was eating with his right hand, and with his left hand he said, "Bring more, bring more, bring more, aniyor, aniyor, aniyor." So the Brajbasis brought more food. They were bringing more and more and more and more food. So much food that soon all the storage they had with them was empty. All the food, all the grains, all the milk products, everything was offered now in front of Giri Govardhan. And they were like a little bit like, "Oh my God, what are we doing now? We want to give more, but we don't have anything more." And they turned to Balaram, explaining him, "What should we do? Our storage is empty. We cannot offer any more. When he finished that, it's done. We don't have anything anymore." And then Balaram just took a tulsi leaf, offered it to Giri Govardhan, and as soon as Giri Govardhan ate that tulsi leaf, he was satisfied. He was satisfied. So he rinsed his mouth, washed his feet in a nearby lake, and he was really, really done. And the Brajbasis were relieved. Okay, we could manage to satisfy him. It was almost we didn't had any food anymore. So, sorry, some distraction. Almost we didn't had any food anymore. One little break, I need to drink. Where we were, oh yeah, Govardhan Hill had ended the food offering. Had ended to eat all the preparations. So usually after we offer food, we do arati. And that's of course what the Brajbasis also wanted to do. But they actually didn't want to use the small lamp, what they usually do. So Krishna manifested a large, gigantic tray with thousands of lamps, and all the Brajbasis, they lifted this huge arati tray, and together they did arati for Govardhan with this tray full of thousands of lamps. This must be a wonderful picture. Thousands of lamps lifted by everyone worshipping Govardhan Hill. When this was done, the Brajbasis worshipped the cows. They even paid obeisances to the cows, which made Krishna actually very, very happy when they saw the cows were even worshipped. After they were worshipping the cows, they worshipped the cowherd boys. And then Nanda Maharaj said, okay, with this, Govardhan Puja is concluded. The worship of Govardhan is concluded. One point was missing, Krishna in the beginning said 5 points. Now, of course, everybody got sumptuous prasad. Everyone was feeding first the brahmanas and then everyone else. And not even that Nanda Maharaj gave out all the prasadam and was feeding everyone. He also gave out precious gems and opulent garments. So the hearts of everyone was like overflowing. The hearts were so full of joy, overflowing with joy. Everyone bowed down in front of Govardhan in wonder and awe. What beautiful worship this was. So everyone bowed down, and when he came up, the personality on top of the hill was gone. But still, they said, one thing is still missing. Let's make Govardhan Parigram. And this was the first time ever Govardhan Parigram was done. So everyone started, after a signal from Nanda Maharaj, everyone started to circumambulate Govardhan. They went around Govardhan. Of course, in a certain order. Right in the front, there were the cows, also in a certain order. At first, there were the white cows, and then came the other cows. Amongst the cows, the cowherd boys, they were like really joyous and happy. They had like their little cowherd sticks. They were twirling them around in a really fancy manner. And Krishna and his friends, they were laughing and joking. And all the boys, they were swarming around Krishna and Balaram like little bumblebees. So it was, beautiful, colorful scene. Behind the boys came Nanda Maharaj, also broadly smiling about the festival which was going on. He had also a beautiful flower garland around his neck, and he was smiling and smiling with such great satisfaction. With Nanda Maharaj, of course, the other leading man of Vrindavan. And while Nanda Maharaj was going around Govardhan, he gave out charity to every brahmana, to everyone he saw along the way. And when Krishna saw this, he was really happy. He was really pleased that Nanda Maharaj was doing this, and he smiled very lovingly at Nanda Maharaj while he gave all out the charity. Then, of course, with them went the brahmanas chanting mantras. Brahmanas never miss on the brahmanas. They're always very good in chanting mantras and making the atmosphere more auspicious. So, of course, the brahmanas went on parigram with them. Also, the musicians. They were like very skilled flute players and veena players, and they played like very skilled drums. The singers were there with their honey voices, singing sweet, sweet, gentle songs. Dancers were there, they're moving row after row. And all these instruments, all this singing, all this dancing increased the happiness even more. With each step, you were almost thinking, okay, after the puja, wow, I'm already so happy. But with the next step, with the food offering, again, more happiness came. Then eating prasadam themselves, more happiness came. Now doing parigram, even more happiness came. All in each step they were thinking, wow, I'm so happy. Not possible to be even more happy, but still more. They experienced again more joy and more happiness. And it seemed like never ending. Everything on top. One more step, one more happiness on top, one more happiness. So while they were walking around Govardhan doing the parigram, oh, of course, the gopis. The gopis were also doing parigram, but they were sitting on bullock carts, very beautiful decorated bullock carts. It is said that these bullock carts could compete with the golden chariots of the gods. So while the gopis were riding on their bullock carts, they were singing about, of course, about Krishna's pastime in a very fun and loving way. So you have to imagine the cows, and amidst the cows there's Krishna in the front. He's dressed like a cowherd boy. He has like a rope around his shoulder. He has his flute tucked in his belt. He's chasing the stray cows back to the rest of the cows, and he's twirling his stick around. And sometimes he's tossing his stick in the air and then catching him again before the stick hits the ground. And this was the sign for Srimati Radharani. She was not with Krishna in the front. She was a little bit behind with the other gopis and elderly gopis also on a bullock cart, and she had a veil over her face, but sometimes she peeked through, and then sometimes she could see the stick of Krishna when he was throwing it up in the air, and then she knew, oh, that's where my Krishna is. So she was peeking through the veil. In that way, everyone felt enormous bliss. When they came to the Yamuna, they took a break for bathing, and then they finished, after some hours, they finished Govardhan Parigram. It is even described that when they finished Govardhan Parigram, they still had energy for an evening festival, like dancing, song, music, some entertainment program was going on in the evening. And after all of this was done, Krishna declared, just see how Govardhan Hill has assumed this huge form, and he was accepting all your offerings, all our offerings. He assures that the cows have their good fortune. He assures the good fortune of the cows. And he assures also the good fortune of all the people in Vrindavan. And I say, everyone in Vrindavan and near Govardhan, they must worship Govardhan. And with this, everybody went home with an overflowing happy heart. What a day. Here, my dear ladies and gentlemen, the story could end, but we have an Indra. And now Indra got informed by Narada Muni We hear this more often in a lot of stories. Narada Muni is always coming and telling what's going on with Krishna. So in this case also, Narada Muni came to Indra and was informing him that the people of Vrindavan had cancelled Indra Puja and instead were worshipping a hill. They were worshipping Govardhan Hill. They were doing a Govardhan Puja, they made the Anakut festival with the foothill, and then they did the parigram. They replaced Indra. When Indra heard that news, he immediately became terrible headache, huge bodily reaction on this stress. It really stressed him out. He got replaced. Huge headache. It is described that not even any doctor of the demigods could heal Indra from this terrible headache. And Indra decided that he wanted to have a huge revenge. How could it be? How could it be that they dare to cancel offering for Indra? So he wanted revenge against Krishna. He wanted revenge against Nanda, who allowed all this. He wanted a revenge against the Brajbasis, who took place in that, took part in that. And he wanted revenge on the cows also. He wanted a huge revenge. Indra was in a terrible rage and he called the Samvartaka cloud. The Samvartaka cloud is actually for the universal destruction. So Indra said to him, my dear cloud, my dear Samvartaka cloud, you are very, very powerful and you are able to destroy 14 planetary systems. But today, I only want that you destroy one small region. And if you're really loyal to me, you do that. You don't dare to ignore my order. You act according to what I say. So these cowherd men in Vrindavan, they have stopped worshipping me. On the advice of this little boy, Krishna, they abandoned me, king of the heaven, Indra. They believed that little boy, they stopped worshipping me and instead worshipping a mountain, Govardhan Hill. They must be punished and everyone should be destroyed, even the cows. I order you, Samvartaka cloud. I order you. You go to Vrindavan. You send tireless rain. You shake the earth. You flood everything. Destroy Govardhan Hill. Destroy the land of Vrindavan. Destroy the villagers. Destroy the cows. Ooh. So Indra's pride and Indra's envy really took over. He thought he's the supreme personality himself. He actually was not a demon, but he was really puffed up with his material position. So the Samvartaka clouds they went to Vrindavan, accompanied by other clouds and by great winds. They gathered over Vrindavan, these dark, black clouds. They covered the sky above Vrindavan. They blocked the sun from entering, so that Vrindavan was covered in darkness. These clouds even expanded themselves to other planetary systems and drenched everything in complete darkness. When everything was dark, they started to war ferociously. And then everything is dark. You can already see, wow, a storm is coming, a huge storm is coming. So the rumbling starts, the roaring starts, and then finally they release torrents of rain. Torrents. These rain, my dear ladies and gentlemen, these rain, on the one hand, it was piercing like sharp arrows, and on the other hand, it came down in columns, huge like banana trunks. Huge trunks of full-grown banana trees, so big where the columns, this rain was coming down. together with the rain came also hailstone. So the clouds got even thicker, they became even thicker, and these hailstones were dropping down. Not small, tiny hailstones I know from Europe. No, these hailstones, they were huge, huge like boulders, and they were smashing to the ground that they could even pulverize trees. Torrents of rain, huge boulders of hailstone. Then together with that came the wind. This wind could tear apart mountains. This wind could uproot trees. Rain, hailstone, wind, lightning. Now comes also the lightning. Huge flashes of lightning. This lightning looked like a forked tongue of a snake, and it was alternating with the darkness very quickly. So lightning, dark, lightning, dark, lightning, dark. They in a quick succession, they alternated this huge lightning bolts. So we have rain, hailstone, wind, lightning, and gradually the land of Vrindavan, it filled with water that no one could distinguish anymore. Where is highland and where is lowland? Everything was just flooded. So it was an extremely dangerous situation, extremely dangerous, especially for the animals. And the Brajbasis felt like this, it's a destruction coming, it's a huge destruction coming. And they called out to Krishna to protect the cows, to protect all the living entities of Vrindavan. Everyone, every living entity in Vrindavan was in huge, great distress, and they were looking for shelter. The calves were hiding under their mother's belly, and the cows, they could not even look properly because of the heavy rain there. They could almost not open their eyes. They were shivering uncontrollably. It was such a painful condition to be in, and they were looking for Krishna for their only shelter. The bulls, the strong bulls of the herds, they were really angry. They had like red eyes looking up in the sky, and also drenched completely in water. And when this hailstone sometimes hit a hump of a bull, then it hailstone broke to pieces, and it looked like pearls scattering here and there. And they were really like with their red eyes looking, raised their heads and looking so angrily at these clouds that they just should go, leave my cows and my calves alone. But they couldn't do anything. Some animals gathered under the shelter of massive trees. The peacocks and the birds, they were like clinging on to the branches, but the winds were so massive and so strong and so fierce that these trees got uprooted, and again they were without shelter. Then the birds, when they started to fly away, when they wanted to fly away, the wind just struck them down on the heavy rain. The butterflies and the bees, they were cast around mercilessly, nowhere to go. So all these animals were screaming for help. Not also the devotees, the animals and the devotees, screaming for help, praying to Lord Krishna. We are in great danger. Please, please protect us. Save us from this terrible, terrible rainfall. But the roar of the wind, it was so strong that it drowned their cries of help. These cries couldn't reach far because of this strong wind. But of course, their cries did not go unnoticed. Of course, Krishna heard them, and Krishna understood. This is Indra. This is the exhibition of Indra's anger. He is doing all that. So Krishna thought, okay, I want to install faith in my devotees that Govardhan worship is okay. We don't need to worship Indra, so let's take shelter from Govardhan Hill. So, on the order of Krishna, everyone came through the hill, everyone assembled at Govardhan. Then Krishna consulted with his friends and the cowherd men. What can be done? What can we do to save everyone, to give shelter to everyone? And then suddenly, Krishna had the idea that he could use Govardhan as an umbrella. And he shared that idea with the cowherd men. But they were thinking, oh, no. With the cowherd boys, actually, with his friends. That's too risky. That's too risky. Umbrella, Govardhan, no, that's not a good idea. But Krishna was already on his way into a cave. And this cave were leading under Govardhan Hill. And it was so quick that the cowherd boys could not follow him, and they just saw suddenly how Govardhan Hill came up, how it got lifted. The hill got lifted, and while the hill got lifted, it produced a loud and angry noise, and it grew higher and higher and higher, and the peak of Govardhan, when it grew higher and higher and higher, and the sharp peak of Govardhan, it pierced this blanket of clouds which was hanging over Vrindavan and Govardhan, and it pierced this cloud blanket and ripped it apart. And it is described that there were also wild animals on top of Govardhan Hill, like lions, for example. So these animals also got lifted up when Govardhan got lifted up. And when they reached the cloud blanket, the lions were actually thinking these are elephants, and they started to fight with these actually clouds, but they thought they were fighting with elephants, and they're using their sharp, powerful claws to rip this cloud cluster apart. So would be nice to have a picture from that, how this fierceful lions like ripping the clouds from Indra apart when they got uplifted on Govardhan Hill. So wow, now Govardhan is ready to serve as an umbrella, as a jeweled bedecked umbrella for all the Brajbasis. Actually, it is described that as soon as Krishna touched Govardhan with his left hand, then there was a current of divine ecstasy which went through the mountain. And because of that ecstasy, Indra's thunderbolts, or this storm, this hailstorm, they just felt like flower petals to Govardhan. They were just bouncing off his body, and he didn't felt any pain or any uncomfortableness. So there was no fierce wind or no razor sharp lightning bolts which could hurt Govardhan. He was just peacefully balanced on Krishna's little finger of his left hand. Very calmful and peaceful. But still the Brajbasis were outside. They were staring in awe how they could... what was going on? The hill was lifted, right? Like, wow. And then Krishna said, come, take shelter of the hill. The mountain feels very, very light. It's not heavy at all. I'm not exhausted. Don't be afraid. The hill will not fall from my hand. Come, take shelter. Be happy. Come with all your animals under this huge, great umbrella Govardhan is providing. And then everyone had the courage to enter under Govardhan Hill. And then, my dear ladies and gentlemen, what they saw, they did not enter a dark cave. They entered a splendid valley under Govardhan Hill. This valley could easily accommodate everyone. There were fields of green, lush, soft grass. There were many lakes, like crystal clear lakes, yeah, water with lakes with crystal clear water. There were even trees under Govardhan Hill in this valley, and there was a dazzling light. And this dazzling light came from the glistening jewels which were everywhere. They illuminated the area very beautiful, and it is described that it even looked like the palace of Narayan under Govardhan Hill. Beautiful, very, very beautiful. And a soft breeze was going through. It smelled like kadamba flowers, and it refreshed the body and the mind, and everyone felt peaceful. The animals on top of the hill were peaceful. They were above the roaring clouds. The hill itself, very, very peaceful. Nothing could harm him. And the Brajbasis and the animals under the hill also so calm and so peaceful. After all this anxiety, after all this being afraid of almost drowning, losing everyone, now they were in a place of complete peace. And actually this alternating emotions from being very happy, suddenly having this huge fear of everything can be destructed in any moment, and now again this peacefulness, this emotion changes, increased the love of the Brajbasis for Krishna more and more and more and more. And now starting 7 wonderful days. The Brajbasis are staying for 7 days under this hill, under Govardhan Hill. And it is something out of the world. For 24 hours, 7 days a week, they can be with Krishna. It is something which is actually never happening, because sometimes Krishna is at home. During the day, he is at Govardhan, where the cowherd girls cannot see him. They sometimes sneak around to have a look here and there, but now they're in a place where they can be 24 hours with Krishna. And it was so magical that it doesn't matter where someone was standing, they always saw the face of Krishna. And it appeared like Krishna was looking at them. He was standing right in front of them. It doesn't matter where in the cave they were. They could clearly see Krishna, because Krishna was also standing on a crystal boulder, and his feet were the height of a friend's shoulder. So he was really like on a podest. And by mystical powers, everyone could see his face. So no one suffered. Neither Govardhan nor those under him suffered the least. There was so much going on under the hill. One person, of course, was a little bit worried, and this was Mother Yashoda, the mother of Krishna. She was really worried. Her little son is holding a mountain on his little finger, a whole mountain. How can he do this? He must be really exhausted. This mountain can fall from his hands. And Krishna was trying to pacify her. He said things like, "Don't worry, mother, Govardhan Hill cannot slip from my hands. He made himself really, really light. How else would I be able to pick him up?" And as he said that, he caught the glance of Radharani. And this glance from Radharani, it made him shiver a little bit. It caused him briefly to falter, and it made the hill shake in his hands. And this shaking, the sudden shake of Govardhan Hill, the Brajbasis took as evidence that Mother Yashoda might be right, he might be exhausted, and everybody, the cowherd boys, not everybody, the cowherd boys, they rushed forward with their sticks to help Krishna to lift up the hill. And so they put up their sticks in the air to hold Govardhan Hill. And while they were doing this, Govardhan let out a tremendous roar, like a little bit like something like this. And then they were like in shock. And Madhumangal then said, "What are you doing? You only scratching Govardhan's belly. Nothing else you are doing. Don't worry. Krishna can do that. He is not the least tired, not the least bit tired." So this and much, much more was going on under the hill. Everyone could see Krishna for 24 hours, 7 days a week. With one hand, Krishna was holding the hill. With the other hand, he was even playing his flute. Very happy place. Now, what is Indra doing? Indra, still in his heavenly abode, Indra sent out now a scout. He wanted to see Samvartaka cloud. Usually Samvartaka cloud can destroy 14 planetary systems. So Vrindavan must be gone by now. So he sent out a scout, and the scout came back to report that actually the efforts were unsuccessful. The efforts of the Samvartaka cloud and the other clouds and all these winds, unsuccessful. This increased the determination of Indra, and he got angrier and angrier and angrier, and he doubled the intensity of the attack each day. Each day, more clouds, more rain for 7 days, still all the time, unsuccessful. The clouds became more and more fatigued, and they were very dispirited with their efforts. You have to know, all the time the scouts came back, they reported like the villagers and the animals, they seem like not disturbed at all. They're not hungry, they're not thirsty, they don't feel any discomfort. So the scouts were really astonished how Krishna was holding the hill, and they could see that the Brajbasis were also very astonished how Krishna was holding the hill on his little finger of the left hand. And they said finally to Indra, the cowherd boys and men, the cowherd people, they are not perishing. We cannot destroy them. Then Indra got really angry. I thought for a long time I had cut off the wings of the mountains, but it seems like this Govardhan, his wings are sprouting again and again. But now I will teach him. I personally will teach him. And he took a flaming thunderbolt, and he said, with this thunderbolt, I will destroy the inhabitants of Vrindavan. And very foolishly, Indra threw this thunderbolt on Vrindavan. But again, Govardhan felt nothing. This thunderbolt just like flower petals. The attack again failed. Indra was boiling with anger. He picked up another thunderbolt and another, and he threw and threw and threw, all the time confident. This time he was successful. But all the time the scout said, Master, my dear master, we watched these powerful thunderbolts were striking Vrindavan, but still, this hill is very powerful. It stands tall and proud, and it seems like nothing can destroy him. All the creatures are very peaceful and blissful. They're not suffering the least. So Indra said, okay, it's time for my special lightning bolt. He took a very ultimate weapon, the strongest weapon Indra has. He took it. He stormed out of the palace, and he wanted to release this weapon, and he did. He released this weapon. But in this moment, Krishna decided, it's enough. It's enough. Indra, that's enough. And Krishna paralyzed Indra and he froze the weapon mid-air. Then he forced Indra into a trance. And in his trance, Indra got the vision. He saw Krishna seated on 1,000-petaled lotus. Krishna was dressed as a cowherd boy, very beautifully ornamented with various jewels and garlands, and he was holding a flute in his hand. And when Indra saw that vision of Krishna, all his pride, all his ignorance got destroyed from his heart. Whoa. He realized what he has done. And suddenly he remembered a prayer from his spiritual master, Brihaspati, and with a choking voice, with a shaking voice, he recited that prayer. Of course it was shaking. He was just realizing he wanted to destroy 1 second ago. He wanted to destroy God. He wanted to destroy all his friends, all the inhabitants of Vrindavan, everything what Krishna loves. Indra wanted to destroy him. He realized that in that moment. And with a shaking, crying voice, Indra just recited that prayer. And he glorified in this prayer the different yogas which appeared, how Krishna appeared in the different yogas. He glorified his beauty, his pastimes. He glorified the relationship with Radharani. He glorified Krishna's flute playing and the friendship with the cowherd boys. And when he finished his prayer, Indra was so full of remorse. He was totally free from his pride, but he was so sad. He went back to his abode, and when he got there, he looked around and he said, "Now my home looks like hell. I wanted to destroy Vrindavan. I wanted that Vrindavan suffers, but I only brought suffering to myself. I tried to drown Nanda Maharaj, and now I'm drowning. I'm drowning in my own sins. I was throwing thunderbolts on Govardhan Hill. I could just have thrown it at myself. I could just have hurled them on my own head." So he was really devastated. And we can learn from this that whoever wants to bring trouble to Krishna and his devotees, in future, they will drown in an ocean of misery. It is described that also later, Indra returned to Vrindavan with Surabi cow, and he asked actually for forgiveness. Surabi cow asked for forgiveness, that Krishna may forgive all the sins Krishna made. So the storm is over. The storm is over. The rain has stopped. Everyone can return to their home. And Krishna said to the cowherd boys, "You see, the rain has stopped. Now we can go home. My dear cowherd, man, you can take your wives, you can take your animals, you can take your possessions, and you can go home." And he reinforced also the faith in Govardhan Hill, and he loudly spoke out, he raised his voice and said, "All glories to our Savior, Govardhan Hill. All glories to our Savior, Govardhan Hill. All glories to our Savior, Govardhan Hill. Giriraj ki jai." And with these cries, all the animals left the shelters. The rivers began to flow very peacefully again. The winds blew gently. They bent over trees. They erected themselves. The muddy roads dried up very quickly. And the air filled again with the singing of the birds and the buzzing of the bees. And after everyone went out, after everyone had left the shelter of Govardhan Hill, then Krishna replaced Govardhan Hill very slowly at exactly the same spot it had been before. And then, of course, everyone finally they hugged Krishna, they embraced him, they were in great ecstasy, and they poured a lot of blessings over Krishna for holding the hill. The demigods showered flowers, and conch shells were blown, and finally, everyone could happily go home, singing about the glories of Govardhan Hill. And with this, my dear ladies and gentlemen, I want to end today's storytelling. This is one of the Leelas. You can find so much more details in the scriptures. So maybe next time I tell a slightly different version, or I add here and there another detail. I hope you, when you hear this, you can deepen your meditation about Krishna. You can deepen your meditation about Govardhan Hill, about the shelter, about our faith. And I wish you a wonderful evening here on this Govardhan Puja day. Hare Krishna. Thank you for joining.